What's up, everybody? Welcome to Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric Hobbs.
And I'm David Woldingen.
And today we're going to preview the St. Louis Blues first round matchup of the Stanley Cup Playoffs against the Minnesota Wild. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on Facebook and on Instagram. Now, David, this is Central Division rivalry, two really good teams. I think this series is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a doozy of a series for sure. The season record for both of these teams came out to be the Blues on top 3-0. However, two of those games were won in overtime, which just goes to show you how close these games are. Not to mention that the Blues did a great job just finding ways to win. So it's definitely going to be a barn burner of a series, if you will. Very fun to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Blues end up with 109 points in the regular season. That is tied for third most in franchise history, and having one of the best seasons in club history, good enough for third place in the division. So that just goes to show you how good Minnesota and Colorado were this season and what kind of challenge it's going to be. It's a shame that, the Wild and Blues are matched up in the first round. To me, that feels like a second round matchup or even a conference final type of matchup. But thank you to the NHL's playoff structure. One of them's out in the first round, and I hate it. I hate the playoff structure the NHL uses. You kind of touched on it, David. The Blues went 3-0 against the Wild, won all three. The only one that did not go into overtime was the Winter Classic, and that's probably good because someone probably would have got hypothermia if they would have had to go into overtime, as cold as that game was. Going back even further, the Blues are 9-0-1 against Minnesota in their last 10 regular season games. That is one. It's incredible to have that kind of record against a good team like Minnesota. They've been good. And, it's one of those where it's also deceiving at the same time, because you'd think with that kind of dominance in terms of wins and losses, you might expect 5-1, 4-0, whatever type games, but they've been close. There's been lots of overtime games, lots of one-goal games. The teams are not separated by very much, and I think we're going to see that play out in this series.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting to watch. This Blues team, compared to the one in 2019 when they won the Cup, is a little different in the fact that they're not all just big bruiser hitting guys, if you will. There's a lot more speed and a lot more technique involved with their play, which is really interesting because they're still a team that can hit and produce a lot of hits. But at the same time, they can outskate you as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Minnesota does to open up the playoffs. Are they going to come out trying to get physical? Or are they going to go more technical and try to play more to a technical type of hockey, if you will?
Yeah, and I think I'll be curious to see if their approach to this series is impacted by their struggles against the Blues. When you lose that much against a team, it, right? Is there a mental block for Minnesota? Is there some sort of frustration where they have in their heads, we can't beat these guys no matter what? I tend to think no, but if the Blues go up to Minnesota and win games 1 and 2 up there, at that point, I think it's going to creep into their heads.
Yeah, and honestly, considering how the playoffs are, I don't know if that would be good for the Blues because, again, the year they won the Cup, they went almost 7 games in every series. By having those days off and waiting around, that might be bad for the team because they're like losing their edge, if you will. It might be better if Minnesota does put up a fight and it goes to game 7. Again, could be completely wrong on that theory, but that's kind of what I saw last time the Blues won the Cup.
Yeah, that year, every series, the Blues played and went at least to a game 6. Now, when you look at the matchups and the way the teams play, it's two very different kind of approaches. For the Blues, they have 9 20-goal scorers, which is outrageous. And there's so much Yeah, there's so many options that if someone's having an off night, there are options everywhere.
Yeah, and think about that 920 goal scorers. At the same time, you have four very solid lines you can throw out against Minnesota. So
Yes.
now you're talking about games that might go into overtime that have like no shootouts or anything like it. It's not a 5 minute 3-on-3 period. They're playing until somebody scores. That's to the advantage of the Blues just because of how deep they are.
Yeah. And, while the Blues may have the depth, Minnesota counters with Kirill Kaprizov. And he had, was it 47 goals? I think it was 108 points on the season. He is probably the most dangerous goal scorer on the ice in this entire series. So, to a certain extent, it begins and ends with him for the Wild's offensive attack.
Yeah, exactly. And it's if you stop him, what does Minnesota have left to counter? So another thing to look at is the goaltending in this series. The Blues have Billy Husso and Jordan Bennington. Now Husso is going to be mainly in the net, but if he starts to struggle, how long does Berube stay with him? Because you have Bennington looming in the background. If you look to the other side, you have Talbot from Minnesota as their number one goalie, but they traded for Andre Fleury. So both of these backup goalies are Stanley Cup winners. How long do you hang with your number one starter if there starts to be an issue? Do you give the other guy a chance? So it's going to be real interesting to see how both teams handle their goaltending as well, especially Minnesota based on the offensive power the Blues have. If they go on a scoring spree in one of the games or a couple of the games, do they stick with Talbot or do they go to Fleury? It's going to be real interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the Blues that Jordan Bennington, he wasn't playing great to end the season, but he improved enough to where he wasn't a complete train wreck in net at the end of the season, like he had been a month or 6 weeks ago. So I think both Craig Berube and the players in front of Jordan Bennington are going to be more confident if, either due to injury or Billy Husso just decides to suck in some game, they can, they have a little more confidence saying, all right, Bennington, go get us a win.
All right. So another strength of the Blues going into this game is their special teams.
Yeah.
The Blues come in number two in the league in power play offense. I don't see that changing in the playoffs. I know things get a lot tighter, but with how many goal scorers and how many options they have, I just don't see them stopping the tear they're on when it comes to the power play, especially going up against Minnesota because they're in the lower third of the league, I believe, in power or penalty kills. So it is a major advantage for the Blues in this series. The other key to that would be staying out of the penalty box. Through the season, the Blues have 611 penalty minutes, whereas the Wild have 882. So they take a lot more penalties than the Blues. So I think based off that, that's going to be real key for this series to make sure the Blues can continue doing well on special teams because that's going to be a big advantage to them.
Yeah, I'd expect the referees to kind of put the whistles away in the postseason to an extent, but yeah, that is an advantage that the Blues are going to have. I think both special teams units are better than Minnesota's. So when that does happen, I think it's advantage Blues big time. Now, David, prediction time for this series. The Blues 9-0-1 against the Wild the last 10 regular season games. I don't see this being a sweep or 5 games. The teams are too evenly matched despite that record. So many of those games go to overtime, being tight, all that, as we mentioned. I think that's how the series is going to play out. I do think at the end of the day, when you're looking at these past regular season matchups, the Blues have always found a way. I think that's what we're going to see. I'm going Blues in 7.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that prediction. I'm along the same lines of Blues in 7. However, I will say this: the Blues are starting out on the road, and it actually might be a blessing. And some of the players have even said it because it takes them away from all the distraction and the hoopla of the beginning of the playoffs. They don't have to give tickets to their families, things like that. they can be a cohesive team and just be isolated and go straight to the game. I have a feeling if the Blues are able to sneak out both wins up in Minnesota, they could run away with this fairly quickly. However, I do agree with you and think it's going to go 7, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and we might even see some major fights break out in this one. Anyway, that's all we have for our prediction for the Blues Wild playoff series. Hopefully we get to do this again for the next round. Thank you for watching.